Welcome back to another episode of Rhinestones and Rants, where the glitter is real and so is the tea. I'm Alyssa Better, your host, and today's episode you do not want to miss. I am joined by one of my favorites, Cameron Suckle, an incredible, talented dancer, BFA graduate, and daughter of a former studio owner. This episode is called Leotards and Legacy, the Studio Kids Confessional, and we are diving into the highs, the heartbreaks, pressure, and behind the scenes of the competitive dance world. We're also spilling back the backstage secrets, talking about what it's like to be growing up in the studio world and pulling no punches. So buckle up because it's about to get sparkly and spicy. So click that like button, share the love, make sure to subscribe, and let's sashay into it. Welcome to Rhinestones and Rants, where the glitz of the dance world meets the real talk of industry and a dance mom who lived it every day. This podcast isn't just about perfect pirouettes and dazzling costumes. It's about the raw, unfiltered journey of raising dancers, navigating the competitive scene, and balancing the chaos of life beyond the studio. So grab your coffee or wine, adjust that messy bun, and join me and special guests for a little bit of rhinestone-covered realness. Click that like button below, subscribe, and let's get into it. Well, Cameron, I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited too.
First of all, huge congratulations.
Thank you.
Cameron graduated this past weekend with her BFA in dance. What school?
University of Texas at Austin.
Hook'em. I feel like it was yesterday that I was standing in the parking lot and you were trying to figure out what dance you were going to do to submit, and you were working on essays, and you're sitting here now as a college graduate. That completely blows my mind, not to mention Joelle's in school for a BFA too.
Mm-hmm.
So it really, when they say it goes fast,
it
truly goes fast. And you happen to be truly one of my favorite people. And I share that not because she's sitting in the seat. I do share that because when I first met you, or I'm going to talk about, well, first of all, how long do you think that we know each other at this point?
7, 8 years, maybe more.
And you know Joelle even probably longer. And they know each other through social media.
Yes.
The
Instagram, dance world is small.
Dance world is small. And I remember when we were looking to leave Fierce Dance Studio, and Joelle said to me, "Mom, they're opening up this new studio." And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she said, "This girl, Cameron, she's amazing. I follow her. She's like so my big sis." And she was so excited. And she said, her mom's opening a studio. And it's like, okay, whatever. Like, just go to dance. Like, I don't even want to hear about this.
Just do it.
Just go to dance. And she said, you were so nice, and that, you really wanted her to like come to the studio.
Yeah.
And she felt so welcomed, and it was so warm. And this wasn't coming from, your mom, the studio owner. This was coming from her daughter at first I was, because I didn't know you.
Right.
At first I was like, well, maybe she's just like helping her mom get students. But I found out very quickly how authentic and genuine you are. And I mean, it's just been such a blessing to like watch your journey, like from when you were also little when I met you,
Yes,
right?
I
like
was.
it's crazy when I start to
crazy.
think about. I feel old when I start to think about
You
that.
are not
but
old.
it's an amazing thing to watch, and I'm really like I said, very excited to be sitting with you here at this moment. So let's talk about a little bit. At the beginning, when you first took your first dance class, I don't know if you remember when you were that little, but your mom had a really big background in dance.
Yes,
right?
she did. She was a big ballerina. And I mean, I don't remember exactly, but what I've heard is that I was a big jumping bean and I couldn't sit still all the time. So they just like threw me in dance lessons. I was the kid that was like licking the mirrors, touching everything, was not paying attention. But it really helped take out all my energy and do something that I loved, and I quickly fell in love with it. Not just because my mom wanted me to do it.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Like, did you ever feel pressure? Like, you hear sometimes about boys like their fathers were big football players,
Right.
or they were very into soccer, and it's like these kids have no choice. This is the path that they're going to follow. They're going to become football players. They're going to become great soccer players. Did you ever feel like, I have no choice, this is the path I'm going on?
Absolutely not. No, my mom and my father, they are both in the arts. My brother loves the arts as well. We're just an artistic family. And so my mom, although she was a ballerina and although she loved dance and wanted me to dance, I had the choice. And she gave me the choice when I was about probably 6th grade, whether I wanted to do soccer or if I wanted to do dance. And I personally chose dance. So was
which
never
is
forced.
probably made her so happy
Probably.
knowing her, like, so
Absolutely.
thrilled. I mean, what mom really doesn't want her kids in like tutus and the beautiful, perfect buns
Right.
and the whole entire thing?
Right.
So I'm sure that made her happy. And you are a beautiful dancer. You've
Thank
always
you.
been an amazing dancer. I've always loved to like watch, from the mirror, from the stage, like seeing you on stage. You can see how
Thank
much
you.
you've loved it. Obviously, you went all the way with it through
Yes, I
school, which
did.
is great. But it wasn't always that way for you. I mean,
Mm-mm.
to see you smile now and to see the, genuine happiness from you, it wasn't always like that. I mean, I know your story and I want to make sure that everybody hears your story. You weren't always a featured dancer.
Mm-mm.
You weren't always front and center. It was not always easy because you danced with girls who were very great. They were great
Yeah,
dancers,
amazing.
but they had more opportunities sometimes than you had. Talk to me a little bit about what that was like.
Yeah, I think that the dance world is so biased, first of all. And me going into the dance world, not really knowing many people, I went to a ballet studio first. And so there were already these kids that have been dancing there since they were 2 years old. And I jump in maybe around the age of 9, not knowing anybody, not knowing the professors, not knowing the teachers at all. So it was hard. I quickly found my friend group, and they were the popular girls, I would say, and they were the ones put in the front. And so me coming in and not being as good as them, it was hard, but it did help me drive and push harder to work harder in class and meet the teachers and befriend everybody and, just put myself out there and put myself in more confidence. But it was hard. It really was hard.
Do you say that, and I don't know what age we're talking about, maybe you could enlighten me a little bit, but when you were having those feelings of where you weren't being put in the front and you saw other people getting it, I know you, and I know that it fueled you, it fired you.
Yes.
But do you think that it messed with your self-esteem at some point?
Absolutely.
And like, those are important development
Yes.
years?
Yeah, I think that going to the ballet studio and then jumping ship to a competitive studio, and when I say that they were competitive, they were very competitive. It was very small. You had to audition to be on the company. Luckily, I made it. But jumping from a ballet studio where it was really, really big and there were other kids that were in that exact same boat, it didn't feel as daunting and it didn't feel as hard to be able to put myself in the front, even though I wasn't the best. But going to this competition studio where they told me, no, you're not going to be in this piece because you're not good enough, and not even saying that to my face, but I could clearly see it. It was hard. It really, really was hard. And I think that my mom, especially, she was a rock and throughout this entire process. And I mean, she understood the dance world is so hard and it's competitive. And she pushed me and she was like, just hold your head up high and don't let anybody else define your worth.
Don't let anybody
No.
I'm taking it.
Dull your
Look,
sparkle.
don't let anybody dull your sparkle.
Exactly.
Lesson, most important lesson. This
It
is why I'm
is.
doing this, right? Like it's so critical, I think. And I think I will probably mention it on every episode because these are forming years. These are when your wires, your confidence, everything comes up. So do you remember nights where perhaps you were crying or things that like you felt so like you didn't feel really good about yourself?
No.
Unfortunately, you should have, but you didn't. And was it because, would you say, of the studio owners, teachers, choreographers, or was it the kids? Like what?
It was a mix of everything, I would say. There was a point in my life when I was switching from my middle school, elementary school to a high school, and I took a break from dance because I thought it was what was best for me. I was probably around the age of 12, 13, and those are like the hardest ages too in the dance world and just growing up in general. And then I came back into the dance world after not dancing for a year. So again, I wasn't as good as the other girls. I hadn't been part of the competitions, and there was an audition for the elite team. And I put this in air quotes because there wasn't really a big difference. There was about like 20 of us, 25 of us that auditioned, and only 2 of us didn't make it. And I was one of those people.
Oh, how horrifying.
So it was incredibly difficult. And yeah, like you said, these are your forming years. This is when you build your confidence and you become a woman or become an adult or a young adult. So it's really, really hard to be in that type of environment. But again, my mom, she was my rock through all of this. And if I didn't have her, I don't know how I would be this confident and be the person I am today. Truly.
And what advice would you give for like other dancers, like putting yourself back in that time frame? Because you are far from the only child that like went through this, and there's so many more. I mean, I had a kid who was consistently in the front until maybe she went to your mom's studio. Maybe because of nepotism or whatever you want to call it, but
right.
but she was a kid who she would work her way up to the front. So I had to deal with other things like psychologically
Right.
with her through the dance. But what advice would you give to other kids that felt your way, or what was it something that your mom did? Like you keep saying she was your rock, but what was it that she
Yeah.
did that really helped you and made you stand up in the morning? I mean, clearly somebody can say, don't let somebody dull your sparkle, but
Right.
how do you lift yourself up? Because I remember crying nights and it wasn't even about that Joelle would be upset about.
Right.
So
I mean, to be quite fair, young teenagers, they're stubborn. They don't want to hear their mothers say, like, don't let anybody dull your sparkle, or like, you don't let anybody define your worth and you are beautiful. It's like, okay, you're my mom. Like, I don't really care what you say.
exactly.
But
So
to
true.
be quite fair, it's yourself. You have to know when to separate the two and when to be able to be like, no, I'm going to push this. This is going to help me push myself to be better. And so it really just takes who you are. And it really takes a certain person to be a dancer, quite frankly. But I would say for advice, I would say, I mean, I say it all the time, don't let anyone dull your sparkle. Don't let anybody define your worth, because you define your worth. If you are going to sit there and be in the back and be like, no one wants me, then how are you going to get anywhere? Even at a young age.
Like, don't play the victim.
Right, don't play the victim. But more importantly, it's like, if you show up and you're front and center and you have this confidence, the people that are watching, because now I'm a dance teacher and I teach at a studio and I choreograph as well. If you're putting yourself up in front, I'm gonna be like, okay, they have the confidence to be able to push harder and do it, and they want to work. And so that's what helped me become a better dancer and become, the front and center stage dancer. So it takes a lot of work, but don't give up and put yourself out there, even if you don't think you're the best. Yeah.
So I think that's unbelievably amazing advice, and it's definitely easier said than done, specifically when you're the kid going through it, but nobody should ever be a victim. And at the
No.
same time, there are studio owners that don't always speak so well to kids,
Right.
have no business really being around kids, and I've seen some of that happen in conventions we've went to, and I've seen teachers degrading a child.
Yeah.
So parents that are listening, you got to look for the signals, right?
Yeah.
Like, it could have been a different scenario where you would have necessarily crumbled, and at one point your mom would have had to make a decision. I'm taking her out. Like,
Right.
there's only so much,
Right.
that
Well, there was that time. She did take me out of dance, and
Right,
it was a mutual decision. But then again, I realized that this is something that I wanted to fight for. And so it's a hard world to be in. And I know you know this as a dance mom, and you have a daughter yourself that dances. It's hard, but you just have to have that drive and that push to be able to do it and be able to have that confidence to move forward in the world.
which shapes you really to the person that you are
Exactly.
today, right? Because you need, sometimes they
Exactly.
say you need all of those war wounds or scars to, to really look back and reflect to see how far you've actually come
Right.
as well.
Right.
So it definitely is a journey.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to switch beats and we're going to move forward, and we're going to
Okay.
say, okay, so now you're a back of the room dancer. And now
Mhm.
your mother says, I think I'm going to open a studio. What was your first reaction to that? Did you sit there like, what?
Oh no,
Like-
I was like, thank goodness. Someone had
did?
to. Being in the Valley in Los Angeles, there weren't that many dance studios. Obviously, there's, the really great ones that are in Orange County or like completely over the hill in Ventura County. And it's like all over the place, but there was nothing really good in the Valley with good training. And so I was like, my mom has the drive. She has the passion. She wants to do it. And I was over the moon. And at the studio that I was at, the studio owner had a daughter, and I saw how that impacted her. And I was like, I'm so excited. Everybody's gonna be looking up to me. I'm probably gonna be in the front now,
Which is status,
Exactly.
right? So how instantly did your status change?
Instantly.
Like when your mom was all of a sudden a studio owner. So there you are, back of the room, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden mom opens a studio, and your status is
Oh yeah.
tell me.
I mean, I will say with my friend group, we had this, we called it the Core 7 or the OG 7, which there were 7 of us from this old dance competition studio. And yeah, it was very weird to see my friends treat me differently, being the back dancer and being in the back of that friend group and not really being seen to Cameron, come do this. Cameron, let's do this. Cameron, let's take a photo. I was a little naive back then. I was a little oblivious, but now looking back, I can tell. And especially with the dance teachers, my mom was their boss, so they had to be nice to me. They had to put me in the front. But more importantly, I will say the people that my mom brought in to choreograph or to have master classes, she would make sure that those teachers did not know who I was. And so that also balanced out the way of me being able to be, confidence, not cocky. I like to be confident and knowing that those teachers are going to put me in the front, but then being able to push myself and be like, these teachers these teachers don't know who my mom is and don't know who I am. So now it's up to me to push
Which
myself.
the apple does not fall far from the tree, because I had your mother on another episode,
Yes.
and she is probably one of the most hardworking people
Yes,
that I
she is.
know, and it's in your bloodline, like this hard work ethic, which is incredible. And I know in speaking to her mom, your grandma, was also like an extremely hard worker.
Yes.
So it definitely, that apple is not falling far.
She's taught me well for sure.
And looking back, that status change, right?
Yeah.
Where all of a sudden the people, like you talk about the 7, may not have always included you, may not have always been as welcoming. All of a sudden they're welcoming. So now when you're looking back, older, wiser, more mature,
Yes.
it wasn't authentic, is what I'm hearing you say.
I think that there were a few people in that group that always treated me the same. And then there were a few other people in that group that did try and, bud their way in to get on the good terms with my mom. So looking back, I mean, it's hard to say this now because I don't talk to any of those people anymore, sadly.
Which I
Well,
think,
not really.
which I think says a lot, right?
It does.
Because if it was authentic,
they would stay my friends.
100%.
Right.
So it was like for the moment, it was like that moment in time, which is fine, because that's
Right.
you have that in life everywhere.
Exactly.
There's a reason. I truly believe there's a reason you meet everybody, and
Yes.
it's a little stone to get you across the bridge. And I never look at it as an opportunity to meet somebody as bad, wrong, or indifferent. It's just another part of the journey.
I completely agree. And I think that especially this situation really helped me realize who my true friends are, and realized, I need to be a little bit more careful about the people that I let into my life. And I have the most amazing friends now. I have 5 of my best friends in college that I lived with in the past. Now I just graduated this weekend, but it really did show me what a true friend is like. And those people and that friendship was not authentic whatsoever.
Was there anything that came out of when your mom opened the studio that you weren't expecting? Like you originally, like you said, she said she was opening up. I was like, great training. And you saw the experience that your old dance studio owner had with their child, right? So you saw all of that.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to all of a sudden have the status. I'm going to have the respect. I'm going to be in front. The choreographers are going to know me. But was there something else that all of a sudden, wow, I didn't think that was actually going to happen?
Yeah, there were, I would say, a few, not necessarily negative things, but a few things that were hard being the studio owner's daughter. I had to be held to this status, and sometimes when I didn't want to show up or didn't really have the positive, happy Cameron smile on my face, I would be forced into being like, I'm the studio owner's daughter. I need to look good.
You were the face of the studio.
I was the face of the studio. And so there were times where I was sick or I was injured, and I did get injured quite a lot.
Because dance is
very rigorous.
It's a sport, and it's rigorous on your body, and you do. I mean, hip flexor issues.
And I mean, the
knee
things that we were doing, we
issues.
were lifting girls, throwing our bodies around. It was crazy. But again, being the studio owner's daughter, I had to show up all the time. And
unlike my daughter, if she hurt herself, I could call her in sick for the day.
Right.
That's it. You're not going to dance.
Right.
But different.
It's a different scenario. And I mean, also, I didn't really get my license until I was 18, so she was my ride, and so I kind of had to be there all the time anyways. But it wasn't just her forcing me to do that. I want to make that very clear. It was also me, because being 13, 14, all the way up until 18, I realized the status that I had, and I realized that I want to make a good version of myself, and for my mom specifically, because being a studio owner is hard. There's the crazy dance moms, and they will nitpick everything. They'll be like, well, your daughter didn't do this, or, well, your daughter did this, why can't mine? So it's like, you have to be very careful about what you do and what you say. And so there were times, again, being a teenager and all, that I wouldn't be able to hang out with my friends, wouldn't be able to go to those parties that I wanted to go to. And again, I was also at a very, very, very rigorous high school as well. And so I was swamped with dance and school and everything. So it was just, dance was my entire life.
And I think what made that difficult too, just as I was the dance mom, I wasn't, the dance owner, but I had a daughter who I'm telling her, oh, it's mandatory rehearsal. But then the owner's, your mom's partner, had daughters, and somehow they didn't have to be there that day.
Right.
Miraculously, they had a test, they had whatever, but yet and so that also becomes difficult, because now you're resentful because you're there, but how come they're not there?
Exactly.
So
there were a few times that happened. But again, like I would tell my mom, and quite frankly, there's nothing that she can do, right? But again, I just kept telling myself that, you know what, the people around me are going to see who I am and see who my mother is, and they're going to be like, wow, okay. And then they're going to compare that. But that was also very difficult being compared to another studio owner's daughters. So it was
Did
very
you have
difficult.
to be nice to people that maybe you didn't necessarily want to be nice to?
Yeah, I will say I've grown up a little bit, and so I now know when to be nice and when not to be nice to certain people. But when I was younger, I was just the happy, smiley, goofy self. I would be nice to everybody. And even my mom says, like, Cameron, you can say no to things. Like, you can say no to people. Like, there
I've
was
heard her say that.
right. She probably said it to you and to Joella multiple times too. But yeah, it was hard. She helped a lot, but there was a lot of times where she was like, "No, Cameron, you need you need to say no to things, and you need to not be nice to people." But again, being the studio owner's daughter, yes, I had to be nice to people.
Were there
Yes.
times that you think that because your mom was a studio owner that it caused fights between you and your mom?
I wouldn't say necessarily fights, disagreements. Yes, I mean, again, I was a teenager. I would fight with my
So
mom.
give
It
me
was
Give me
inevitable.
a disagreement. Like
Oh.
what did one of them look like?
Wanting to go to a party. I was young. I was really excited about being in high school. I went to an all-girls school, so already I had that divide of being able to be like a normal teenager.
Yes.
And my friends were having this sleepover, this party, but they decided they didn't want to invite me because they knew I had dance. And so I got on my mom a little bit, and I was pretty upset. But looking back, it's not my mom's fault. Like, I had dance. I was dancing. I had made a commitment to dance. But yeah, we had multiple disagreements about wanting to show up and me being like, I need to study. And she's like, you can study there. And we have a study room. And so there were a few, but they were small. And I don't remember all of them.
And I think that, in knowing you and talking about it, like it had to feel that you were being held to a different standard
Yes.
than everybody else. Like, let's say a Joelle in that dance studio, you were being held to a higher standard because of the position that your mom had in the studio, because
Right.
all eyes were on you.
Mm-hmm.
But in fairness, just to say, I know that people nitpick because they were looking for things, but crazy dance moms anyway nitpick because they're like, their daughter can do that turn better. Their daughter,
Right.
how come
Or
their
I'm-
daughter
yeah,
isn't
exactly.
getting that correction? Like that happens naturally. So anybody that's listening, like it isn't just because she was a studio like the studio owner's
It's
daughter.
inevitable in the dance world.
It's
You will be
it's
nitpicked.
going to happen.
Right.
But talk to me a little bit about that higher standard. I know you touched
Yeah.
on it a little bit, like because all eyes were on you or having to show up, but that inner feeling that you had about that higher standard, what did that look like or feel like to you?
I think that the quick jump, it was hard because even in like rehearsals, my mom would be giving me corrections and be like, "What are you talking about?" Like, "No, I'm not going to listen to you." Right? And so that was hard being able to separate. And we had talks multiple times about, Cameron, you need to stop like making fun of me in rehearsals. You need to stop nitpicking me in
But
rehearsals.
she was your mom.
But she was my mom.
Yes.
And it was hard because the other studio owners' daughters, they had seen their mom in a dance teacher light before, but I had never. And so again, being a teenager, never seeing my mom in this light before, it was very difficult.
Almost like she was nitpicking you.
Right. And being like, why me? But I didn't realize now looking back, obviously, like she was just giving me a general correction like any dance teacher would.
Which what happens in the studio, just to kind of make everybody that's listening follow along.
Yeah.
Before we would go to a competition, there was a run through. Maybe it was called that, but it was a run through, and there would all the dances that we were taking to competition. All the teachers, both studio owners, would sit there, and they would all sit along, and then every single piece we would go and we would
Perform them.
not me. I wasn't performing anything, but I was watching, and then they would come out and they would perform them,
Yeah.
and then both studio owners and all the dance teachers were taking notes. So I'm assuming that you're referring to the fact that she was giving you notes of telling you, no, that wasn't right, but it
Right.
had to feel like this is my mom. Like I want to hear it from maybe
Someone
my
else.
ballet teacher or somebody
Right.
else. Why is she
Right.
telling it to me? So I could
Exactly.
see that fine line of it being
Yeah.
difficult. So how did you deal with that?
It took a while. I mean, again, being a teenager, it's hard. I don't want to listen to my mom. And so it took me a while to realize the difference of being like, no, I need to stop and I need my mom. Because I think the biggest thing was being in rehearsals with that core seven. We were all so close and we were already so close to our moms, like my mom and the other studio owner, that we didn't really see them as like the bosses or the studio owners yet. So it was a very different environment to be in versus what I was in previously at the other studio that I was at. So it was hard. It took a few years.
Where if
I will
Joelle
say.
heard a correction from your
She'd be
mom,
quiet.
she'd
She
be
would
like,
listen.
okay, like,
Right. Right.
May is telling me this. I got to totally
Exactly.
change it. Where for
Exactly.
you, I could definitely
hard.
see. I didn't even really put that together until you just said it. But yeah, that had to be
It was
a
difficult.
fine line,
sure.
specifically when you're young. I mean, this isn't like you have this years of maturity of this.
Yeah.
This is like all of a sudden your mom is telling you what to do at home, like clean your room, and the same
And in
time,
the studio.
and now change
Right.
your footing or the beveled leg or whatever
Right.
the case may be.
My one outlet, she's now telling me what to do too. No, it was good. I think that, my mom is my biggest supporter, but also she's my biggest critic because she wants me to do the best I can. So it was hard and it was difficult, but looking back now, like it was also hard on her because now she had to separate her daughter being in the dance room. And now she had to give equal amount of attention, but also equal amount of corrections to all kids. And so it was different and it was difficult on both ends. But there was also the upside to being the studio owner's daughter. There was, more attention from teachers. And I think that also led me to have more confidence in myself because, oh, wow, these teachers want me to be good. These teachers want to help me and they like me. So I'm going to do better. I'm going to stand in the center. I'm going to be the first ballet bar there. I'm going to be the assistant, right? And so it helped a lot with my dancing. I definitely think that my technique got better because I got a lot more attention. I think my confidence got better, not that I didn't have any before, but I was always front and center for everything, even in dance classes. I made sure of it, and I think that also helped me get better as a dancer.
Which I do want to point that out. So I agree with you. I think you got a lot of attention. I do think that you should have been getting all the attention all along. Unfortunately, that did not happen for you. No. And that's, other parents, dance moms that are out there, if I knew then what I know now, you have to look at that because there was no reason, in my opinion, and knowing you the time that I did, you should have been front and center.
Thank you.
Maybe not always, but you should have had those opportunities and they weren't given to you. Politics, whatever we want to call them, that happens every studio that you go to. And you, because your mom opened up the studio, your technique got better, your confidence got better. You were the face of the studio. You were the front and center of the studio where other people might have looked at you and said, well, why did she get there? So sometimes being that studio daughter's own, like the owner's daughter, do you feel that it was isolating at a point too? Like as for all the glam that it had, there had to be a level of isolation that you experienced that who knew? Like at the beginning when your mom's opening up a studio, like party,
all
like this is
glam,
great.
right?
And there had to be isolation to it. And talk to me a little bit about what that was like.
So my best friend at the studio, she's awesome. She's currently she's teaching at a dance studio, and her and I are still friends. And so she was my rock. I felt like I could tell her everything. She told me everything. But with that core 7 that I thought were my best friends, and I thought I was a part of that friend group, they hid a lot of things from me. And especially the 2 other daughters that had their mom as another studio owner. It was hard. Definitely was hard. I think again, I was a little bit naive during those moments. I think that I was just like, oh, like whatever, like it's fine.
Were they just mean girls or what was the gripe? Like what was it? Jealousy?
I think it was the competitiveness that got to them. To be quite fair with you, I mean, they had always been competitive. They had come with me from the ballet studio to the competition studio to now both of our moms owning the studio together. And I think the competition got to them. I think that before they didn't see me as a threat, and then they did. And I hate to say that that's the reason, but I do believe
it's real. It's authentic. There's lots of people that in the world that we lived in
that have that competitiveness, and it gets to them. And I think that whole entire group felt like they needed to be on their side. And so I was left out a lot of the times. But again, they lied to me. They put on a smile on their face, and they still treated me like one of their best friends. But I didn't know that they were saying and doing things behind my back.
Which is hard. It's a hard pill to swallow. I mean, for those that don't know, when Joelle came into the studio, and this OG7 were all together, she came in with just one other girl. And to break into this OG7 was almost near as impossible.
It was impossible.
And, Joelle doesn't give up, and she kept trying. And the more she tried, the worse it got. And, she experienced what you experienced on a different level.
Completely.
They were just flat out nasty and authentic about being nasty to her face and behind her back. Yeah. Whereas with you, it was different because you were the studio daughter, like the owner's daughter. And you couldn't
really do
they couldn't do that flat out. So in your case, it was very dishonest and it was not authentic.
Yeah.
So that, I don't know which way is better. They both kind of suck.
They're both terrible.
Me. Both terrible. Products of our environment. Right. But I think, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Absolutely.
And in hindsight, look, for me and I talk about this a lot, but for Joelle, I should have moved her out of that environment so many times. And I didn't because she did not, like, she was like, I'm staying
She's
because that's who
adamant.
she is. She was adamant.
Yeah.
And also, there wasn't, to your point, really good train. If there was a better studio,
Oh,
I would have been out there
immediately. Yeah.
100%. But there was, I mean,
Mm-mm.
I'm a person who does research. I'm a person who does my homework. And I knew unequivocally there wasn't anything that was
Well, and all
better.
drama and clicks aside, the training at the studio was incredible.
Phenomenal.
Probably the best in the Valley.
Yes.
And it's very upsetting and sad that I did see and I witnessed a lot of people, especially Joelle, get bullied. And the clickiness of a dance studio, again, is inevitable. Like, there are going to be
Always.
cliques.
Anywhere anybody goes.
Right.
So you're going to have
You're
that.
going to have that.
And if your kid's not on the inside and they're on the outside, you got to keep a close tab on that.
Yes.
Very close. Like
Yeah.
constant conversations, like where you said your mom was your rock. I was in there with Joelle talking to her every single moment,
Right.
like trying to, talk her through it, talk her off the ledge. But to your point, there was nothing she could have done to ever break into that. And that's what you're going to have, unfortunately, in some studios. You're going to have that in life. Like,
Yeah.
maybe it's a
There are
life
going to be
lesson.
mean girls. There are going to be cliques.
100%.
But this was a different level, to be quite fair. It was a different level, not only because they were terrible, but because they were the studio owner's daughters. And to speak on my mom's behalf, she couldn't do anything about it because her business partner's daughters were the worst of them all. And again, no one else around, not in that core 7, not me, not anybody else could say anything about it because they're basically talking to the boss's daughter, right? And so it's like, it was a very sticky situation, not only for me to be in, but for my mom to be in. So that was a very big negative, I would say, of being the studio owner's daughter, for sure.
Because I really think I have such high respect for you, and I feel
Thank
like
you.
you have such a good key in on real versus fake. Always I've thought about that. But in this, you got very tied up in being this face of the studio.
Yeah.
Having these friends that you were never that great friends of yours before. And now all of a sudden we're the Magic 7. I went to high school and I was part of this Magic 10. Like I
Right.
think back to it now, I want to vomit. Like we
Trust me,
matching
me too.
t-shirts, like we were the Magic 10, you were the Fab 7, like same kind of thing,
Yes.
different year and time.
Yeah.
And how was it that you just wanted to be part of it so much that it was hard, that you had like smoke and mirrors on you?
Yeah.
Or when did you finally realize, like, maybe I
This
know you
isn't
had
for
a
me.
friend that told you, but when did you really realize, like, they're not really being authentic?
I think initially I really wanted to be a part of that group because I wasn't necessarily seen as the popular girl. My 2 friends that were the studio owner's daughters moved with me again from the ballet studio to the competition studio. So I already had an in, but I wasn't a part of that group really again. So I think it took me a few years, but after seeing and hearing specifically, there was a moment that happened with those 2 girls, specifically the older one and Joelle, where she asked to hang out and completely lied to her face to get out of hanging out with her. That is, I think, was one of amongst many of the moments that fully clicked in my brain, being like, these are not good people.
Yeah, and just to kind of share it was like, I think it was during COVID, and the studio was trying to do everything. We were doing classes online at the time because you couldn't go into the studio.
Right.
And they were doing finally a get-together where we were celebrating, was it your birthday or somebody's
might have been
birthday?
somebody's.
I want to say it was your birthday, but it was somebody's birthday that we were celebrating, and everybody was going to be outside on the lawn with masks, and it was the safest way, and the kids really needed this. Like, everybody really needed to see each other, and Joelle was so excited because one of these people called her and said, let's go to the mall and pick this person out a great gift and we'll get some lunch. And she thought it was like this
Right.
major turning point.
Like, we're gonna hang out. We're gonna
be
have fun.
besties.
Oh
like,
my
oh my God,
God.
they're finally accepting me. And like she tried so many different angles because
Right.
Lloyd knows Joelle does not know the word no.
She doesn't give
And
up.
that did not give up. And she was excited and
Yeah.
she got my husband to give her money and like she can go to the mall with this
Yeah.
person. And we, at that time, she was young. We weren't letting her off to the mall by herself, let alone in somebody's car. And she was going to get to go do this. So she was very excited. And probably about 15, 20 minutes before they were supposed to go, she got the text saying that she can't, like the person wasn't available, that they're going to end up getting her a present later or something. And then about 15 minutes after that, she sees the pictures on Snapchat with this specific girl who just canceled on her with a bunch of other people
With the
at
Core
the
7.
mall, the Core 7, getting
Not
a
including
gift.
me. I had no idea of this.
You weren't right. You were at the home.
I was at home getting ready. It was actually, it was my birthday.
It was your birthday. And she
Yeah.
was getting ready for her birthday.
It was terrible.
And Joelle was cut out. And I mean, I was the parent that had to see
Yeah.
that look on her face. So, I mean, it's very hard. I always say, like, she cries, I cry. And,
Yeah.
parents, all parents, obviously, we love our children so much. And when
Yes.
you see your child's hurting and there's not a living thing you could do about it, which in actuality, I could have done something. I could have pulled her out. I was almost paying on a regular basis for her to get abused. But I listened to her and she's like, I've got it. I can handle it. And, I say, hindsight, maybe I would have pulled her out. I don't know. She's a stronger person for it today.
I agree. I think that those things shaped us, meaning her and I, to be the women that we are today. We have that grit, we have that passion, we have that drive, but we also are very socially aware now. And we know
that's such a great way of putting it.
and we
socially
know,
aware.
but it taught us. And the sad thing is we had to go through that to get to that point, right? And I think that we would have been able to learn that anyways. But those situations made us stronger, she is an amazing woman, Joelle, and she has always been such a great
she
person.
loves you so
and I love
much.
her so much. And we're both gonna go places because of it, And it's fueling us to do better.
Yeah, and it fueled you to fight for those front spots, and it fueled you
Exactly.
to really understand, like, what's real, what's fake. And you're not always going to get the perfect recipe, but sometimes you do have to go through that to get to where you're going.
Right.
So now let's move through. You're finally getting out of that studio. You're going to graduate. We're going back now to when I saw you in the parking lot, getting ready to write your essays, to go
Yes.
audition, to go be a BFA in dance. And I'm doing a full 8-part episode about college dance, like getting
It's
into
a
school.
completely different world.
It's 8 parts series. There's so much to
So
unwrap with
much.
that. But you pulled out, and I don't want to say the impossible. It was very well deserved.
Thank you.
But talk to me a little bit about when you were applying and how you beat a lot of odds in getting into this unbelievable program. And why do you
Yeah.
think, like, you deserved it? But I
like to say that.
I love the bragging rights you got, because
Thank you.
people didn't give you enough credit, in my opinion.
Thank
And
you.
so when you got to actually do that, it's like I wanted to, send the plane across announcing it to the world. I just felt that joy for you. And tell me about it.
Yeah, I think that COVID was probably one of the hardest times in my life. And I think that was a big shot in my confidence. I was dancing at home. I lost the love for dance. I was so overwhelmed because if you kind of know a little bit more about the audition process of getting into college, what happens is you go in, usually you fly in and you audition in person. During COVID, they made you not only do a completely separate application to get into the school of dance, but also to get into the school. And you had to write in multiple different types of essays, not only for the school itself, but the dance school as well. And then now on top of that, you had to edit your own videos. You had to learn dance, flip it. They were doing a left arm. Oh no, it's the right arm on the video. And then you had multiple times to take it. I probably sat there in that studio for 6 hours working on one video. And it's horrible. And it was hard. And I did it. And it showed. Out of the, I think, 8 colleges I applied for, I got into 7 of them. And
such an unbelievable.
that was I think seeing those acceptance letters and being there with my mom, my brother, and my dad, and them being so excited, but especially the University of Texas at Austin, which was, I believe, that year it was 6% acceptance rate out of state.
Unbelievable.
It was a
Huge.
a huge accomplishment. It was a reach school, but that gave me my confidence back, and it made me realize I am worthy, and I am.
Which is so crazy that
Yeah.
you need almost like an acceptance letter to college, or you need like
That
your
scholarship,
teacher,
or
the
you
scholarship, or the teacher to tell you should be front and center, to give you that
Exactly.
confidence, which, in a sense, you had it all along.
Right.
It just, you needed this letter to bring it out in you. And
Right.
it's like, there are so many kids that are out there. And, if your parents are listening and your kid isn't listening to this, it's like, it's inside of everybody.
Yeah.
You shouldn't need a
Just gotta-
teacher, a college
Or
acceptance
pull it
letter to
out.
define it. It's
Right.
like, it's there. So if you're in an environment that's actually stifling that confidence, it is unhealthy. Run, Forrest, run. Like,
Yeah.
get out of it, because
Get out.
it is not conducive. And I'm so happy that you actually did get that moment, right?
Yes.
So what made you decide, like you said that you went through this like rough time during COVID.
hmm
What made you decide that you wanted to be a BFA major? A lot of kids that dance dance competitively, or
mhm.
they dance recreationally and they love dance. They don't necessarily say, I'm going to go major in dance.
Right.
Right. So
Well, to be quite fair, my mom was a dancer. She was an actress in her early 20s. She lived in LA and she had it rough. And she always tells me, she's like, you are not doing dance as a career. You are not doing what I did. Like, it is hell. Get out of it. But it was, to be quite fair, one of the ways that I knew that I was going to get into all these colleges. It was something that I worked for hard and something that I knew I was good at. And so I used it as an advantage. I mean, I was smart. I went to one of the top high schools, middle schools in the country. And not only did that help me, but the dance was a big driving factor into getting into all of these schools. So, yeah.
But you stayed with it.
I stayed with it.
You
And I
didn't
wanted to, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You didn't change majors. Like, I know a ton of kids.
No.
Actually, I remember when Joelle was going to audition for UCSB,
Mhm.
UC Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, she's not getting in there. Why? Because she's at the audition and the head person of the program says, oh, you're from that school. And Joelle was like, yeah, it's a great school. All of you come here and you just audition and use our program to get into the school. And I was like, oh my God, like,
goodness.
reputation of your studio becomes
oh.
extremely important. But,
Mhm.
you know, you got in and you used it to get in, but then you stayed in.
Yeah,
So
and I think
why?
it was, I always told my mom, and we had this like pact that I was going to go into psychology. Could not tell you why. I just thought it was interesting, and I took a class in psychology in high school my senior year, and I was
Probably
like,
because
you
you
know
had to be
what?
a psychologist in the studio all the time when you were the face of the studio, right?
Right. And so I mean, I like to say like I was always like the therapist or like the mom of my friend group. So like I was like, okay, I'm going to use that and that's what I'm going to do. And then I got into college and I saw the difference of what college life in dance was as to what it was back here in Los Angeles at a competition studio. And I fell back in love with it. Although I was injured the majority of my freshman year of college, I realized that these girls and these people that are part of this department are amazing. Not only like in their dancing and their technique and their ability, but they're not catty
They're
girls.
good people.
They're good people that want to pursue dance and that want to be around other dancers that want to pursue dance.
And all the high school BS gets thrown out the
Thrown
window
out the
because
window.
everybody's there to empower each other.
Right. And there's no competition. It's all about learning. It's all
Yeah.
about becoming a better version of yourself. And so I think also sophomore year, I got hired to teach at a dance studio. And it was mainly just because I needed something else to do and I needed, time and money and whatever. But I fell in love with teaching. And so I want to be a mentor, and that's what I do now. I want to teach dance, and I want to eventually, hopefully, open up my studio of my own. But I love dance. I love dance because I love teaching, and I want to be a mentor to those younger dancers, and I want to be that person that helps them gain that confidence. One of my biggest mottos as a teacher is, you are not going to be a dancer unless you have confidence in yourself, and that's what you need in life. You need confidence, and so that's why I stuck with it.
So what did the past 4 years teach you? Like, I know you talked about confidence before,
Yes.
but what would you say from Cameron, who's first entering college, like little Cameron, high school graduate Cameron,
Right.
Till the 4 years of you just graduating this past weekend?
I really think it was this one course that I took. It was a required course for my major. It's called pedagogy or dance pedagogy. And it's basically a pedagogical practice is the art of teaching and learning how to teach. And we learned all these different ways of teaching, like different ages. But one of the things that we didn't specify on, because again, this is only like a few months and this is only a semester long, we didn't focus on the different ways of learning. And I'm very open about this, and you know this, I was diagnosed at the age of 7 with ADHD, and I struggled. When I tell you I struggled hard in school, but also in dance because I was the loud kid. I was interrupting. I was saying, yep. Like literally one of the things that my mom still tells me to this day is that whenever she would give me a correction or the other studio owner would give me a correction, I'd be like, yep, yep, yep. I get it. I get it. And I would interrupt. And it was hard. It was really, really hard. That's one, I stuck out like a sore thumb in all classes because I was just loud and goofy. I wanted to be the funny one. But it was hard because the teachers didn't want to give me, I wasn't the like favorite kid in the class. So I wasn't given that much attention. I was like put in the corner sometimes, you know. And so being able to do that research proposal that I did, which was focused on learning disabilities, specifically within the dance world, which I think is not looked upon enough, I realized that there are no teachers out there that understand how to teach those with learning disabilities. And it's not a required thing within a studio that you need to understand how to teach those that have different learning ways. And so I wanted, and that was the biggest thing that fueled me to becoming a mentor and becoming a teacher now, is that I wanted to be that advocate, not only to build kids' confidence in the competition world that completely like buries it down, but I wanted to also be there for kids who learn differently. And I wanted to be there for kids who weren't in the popular group and wanted to be there for those who weren't put in front and center. And so being a part of this university and seeing what dance can be like, I wanted to
I love the
shift
story
that
so much. It's
into
like,
competition studio because it's terrible. The environment is so bad. But more importantly, there is something that teachers need. And it is to understand how to teach kids and how to step up and be an advocate for those kids that are misunderstood and aren't seen as the popular kids or they clearly can see are being mistreated.
and it's such a beautiful thing because I think that there are a lot of amazing dance teachers out there
Yes.
and incredible choreographers and studio owners as well.
Yeah.
But I think that there are also some that really should not be around children and
agree.
make people feel different, whether they're tall, whether they're heavy, whether they have ADHD,
Right.
whether,
Yeah, brown hair, blonde hair. Like
it doesn't matter. It's like everybody is different. And, there's a famous guy, his name is David Lilienthal,
Mhm.
and he once said that the most important thing about being a successful leader is in the ability to bring out latent capabilities of people.
Yes.
And if you're able to bring out the latent capabilities of people, you will succeed. And that is basically saying that no two people are the same. And when you are a studio owner, when you are a student, whether you are a choreographer, a teacher, you have a very important responsibility
Yes.
to recognize that when you're dealing with people. If you can't, you should not be doing it.
But more specifically kids. Because you're
Yes,
developing
yes.
and you want to do what you see and you want to do what other people are doing around you and what other people are telling you. And so being a teacher and being, especially in a dance studio, I want to be, again, an advocate for those kids and being able to like shape the mind of those up and coming dancers in the competition world to not see themselves as less than.
So what advice do you have for dancers who are in the back, who are
Mhm.
being overlooked, who may not feel really great about themselves, who experienced a lot of the things that you experienced, knowing now what you didn't know then? What would be that advice?
Well, the first thing is you don't need to be friends with the popular kids just because they are popular. You don't need to put yourself in an uncomfortable position or put yourself with people that you don't actually like, right? I think that
Bingo.
being in a competition studio or any competitive environment, you want to be the best and you want to be with those other people that are the best. But you don't have to do that to become popular or successful in that world. And I think that's one of the things that I wish I had known back then when I was younger is that I thought that I had to be friends with these people that were getting in the front to be in the front. But it was more about my confidence. It was more about me showing up and putting myself in the middle or center or being the first one in the first group, although there are only two other dancers or because it's the smallest group. Putting myself out there really changed the trajectory of my dance career. And when I realized that, and I wish I had known sooner, and I wish I had known because I didn't realize this until I was probably 15, which is when I really peaked in the dance world. So understanding that it's you that can change your entire experience in the dance world. If you just put yourself out there, everything can change.
Love that so much because everybody's responsible
Yeah.
for their own behavior. You can't control other people's behavior, but you can control your own
Exactly.
behavior. And that goes for anything that you do. And it definitely becomes front and center when we're talking about the dance world and
Yeah.
specifically competitive dance world. It's being the best version of yourself.
Yes.
So now, full circle, what's next for you? You just graduated.
Yeah.
It's so exciting. It's like
so surreal.
I feel so excited that I've gotten to be part of your journey, even if
Aw,
it's only
thank
for
you.
like, the past 6 or 7 years. And it's been, I mean, truly, it's like I'm gonna get chills, but it's an honor to see
Thank
the
you.
beautiful dancer and woman that you have evolved into.
Thank you so much.
So what is next? Like, what's next for
Yeah.
Cameron? Like,
Well, my family actually just moved from Los Angeles to Savannah, Georgia, not that long ago. And so I am planning on moving to Atlanta, Georgia, because Savannah is a little bit too small for me. I need big city. I'm a big city girl. So I'm moving to Atlanta at the end of May.
so
My brother and
exciting.
I are actually taking a road trip together. I cannot wait. And we are going to be in Atlanta with my family for the summer. And then hopefully I'm going to get a job in event planning. I want to do that. That's a newfound passion of mine. And I will simultaneously be teaching at a dance studio in Atlanta, Georgia.
May turn into event planning for dancers.
I know,
For
who knows?
dancing. Who knows, right?
Who
You could
knows?
be doing event planning for the big conventions.
Exactly.
That's definitely a lane for
Yes.
sure. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story,
Thank
your
you.
journey. I am so excited for what is in the future for you because I know it looks bright, and that's because you have proven time and time again that
you.
you're in charge of your own destiny. And
Yes.
for those of you that are listening, specifically for the children that you have, ensure that they know, it's okay to be themselves, to be their true authentic selves.
Yes.
Don't try to be somebody else for some,
No.
first just because
that
you
won't
think
work.
it never
Promise
works.
you.
We've seen it happen time and time
Yes.
again. And keep a temperature check on your children
Yes.
because, you are lucky. You have this great mom who is continually checking in with you.
Always.
And it is very important, as you can see. But going to, coming out of high school and going into college to continue dance, it's a success story. And I'm doing an episode on this of all the things you can do after because, for people to say, so you're majoring in dance, what's next? I mean, even your mom said it.
Heard it
And
too many times.
look at all of the amazing things that a dancer can do now.
Yes.
But thanks again so much for
Thank you
sharing
for
your
having
story.
me.
I hope everybody got nuggets and enjoyed this. So please make sure to click that like button. Make sure you subscribe, share the love. And until next time, never let anybody dull your sparkle. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Cameron.
Don't let anybody treat you like regular glue because you're glitter glue. You sparkle, you shine. Get it, girl, get it, friend.